Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here with our new moon forecast. So, this new moon is a huge celebration in India. It's called Diwali. It's the 5-night celebration of the triumph of light over dark. And the reason this festival happens at this specific time of year astrologically is because it's the time of year in the sort of, mid-October to November, the lunar month, the way the Hindu calendar works, is called Kartik, and it's the time when both the sun and the moon are in their state of debilitation. So the sun is still in sidereal Libra. It's at the very final degrees of Libra, as we've discussed the sort of late and early degrees the past few videos. I've been talking about how all of our new moons have been falling at the very end or very beginning of the sign, so 0 degrees or 29 degrees. And the sun is in that 29 degrees of Libra, where it's still debilitated. And the moon is also there, moving into Scorpio, into the early degrees of Scorpio on the next day, where the moon is debilitated. So at that point of Scorpio, the first 3 degrees of Scorpio, is the star Vishaka is flanking both Libra and Scorpio, and the moon becomes debilitated in the Scorpio part of that. So this state of debilitation of our two luminaries, of our psyche, of our emotions, our mind, and also of our power and our authority and our connection to source, this darkness is what we need to personally overcome. It's so easy to point things outward. It's so easy to see these things unfold in the world around us. But the true spiritual seeker, the true spiritual being is seeking within. We're working to transform ourselves, because there's a basic understanding that transformation outside can only occur when transformation inside is occurring. That we do create reality with our thoughts, with our actions, and the way that we're able to create the reality we want to see unfolding is by working from the inside out. If we always point our fingers outside, then no real change will ever be able to happen, because we'll just be moving blocks around outside, and it's always going to be this sort of disagreed upon what is reflecting light. But when we do the inner work, there's nothing to think about or agree about or psychologically analyze, because it's working. It's happening from the inside out. And our actions and our thoughts and our emotions will all begin to align. So this is really what Diwali is about, more than anything, is this sort of alignment of ourselves with our own light, finding our inner light within. Lighting the lanterns on the outside is akin to lighting our inner lantern, our inner spiritual truth and reflection. So that's why this is such a powerful time of year, and also a powerful, specifically new moon for us. And like I said, it's going to fall in the 29 degrees at the very end of Libra, in the star Vishaka. And Vishaka is a very interesting star because it is primarily in Libra. Libra is where we're compromising ourselves. And this has a lot to do with why the sun is debilitated here. Because with the sun, we want to stand in our power. We want to have authority that comes from a direct connection to source. And in Libra, we have a tendency to borrow out our power, to borrow out our authority, to check in with others to see if something feels good to them or is reflected. It's not a very masculine place to stand. And I'm using masculine in terms of the lack of need to connect with the masculine planets. The masculine planets are not seeking connection. They're seeking to find truth. And it's hard to find truth when you're very concerned with what others think about you and how others feel about you. That's a challenging way to find truth. You can find truth in relationship, in that mirror, in that reflection that we're looking for, but it's different than, literally asking others to determine truth for you, or even more significant is really giving our power away. saying that it's more important that people get along, or it's more important that we agree, it's more important that there's harmony than that we're standing in truth. And that's not going to reckon with that specific energy that the sun brings. The moon seeks connectivity much more, as does Venus, the other feminine planet. So they are, operating more from that placement. Now, the moon's debility is going to happen at the other part of Vishaka when it gets into Scorpio, and that has a lot more to do with the emotional quality of Scorpio, that the torment and tumult that comes with Mars ruling a water sign, an emotional water sign where we're trying to find our own fears and our own shadow work. The moon can get very wrapped up in that emotional roller coaster, and we have a lot of trouble processing our emotions and being able to find our way out of them, because it's very easy to get trapped in the sort of boiling waters that Scorpio can have. And get trapped in our fears and our projections and our imagined realities and all of these kind of things. So that's a lot to do with the moon's debility there. But in this part of Libra, back to the star specifically in Vishaka, is this forked or branched is what Vishaka represents. And it is shown by both a potter's wheel, something that takes time. There's a steady quality of needing to have patience and slowly bringing something to fruition, long-term creation that takes that time and patience and age, wisdom, really, to bring about. There's an image of a tree sheltering with its branches growing. It takes a long time for a tree to grow. Trees don't grow overnight. And when they do, it takes some time to have their branches spread out, and those branches provide shelter for us. But there's also this quality of sort of one-pointed vision and really wanting to seek a specific path and go at it alone. And that's the quality that's really intriguing, because it's counterintuitive to the Libra quality of partnership and wanting everything to be in harmony and in conjunction with other, wanting everything to be in relationship to somebody else, and then having to find this path of your own where you can mature and you can grow and you can find long-term results that might set you apart from the crowd. Often when you find people who have natal planets in Vishaka, their moon, or something like that, they often have a quality of independence and actually setting apart from the crowd and not being very comfortable in relationship or crowds. So they're more comfortable on their own path. And that's an alienating quality when you think of the concept of it being in Libra, where all you want to do is relate, all you want to do is connect. So that's the dichotomy that we're reckoning with, the ability to separate ourselves from that deep need for connection, that deep need for relationship, in order to find our own path. And know that the more true we are on our path, the more we are following what is going to serve us in the long term, the more we're going to be able to find relationships and connections that actually meet us with who we truly are in our truth. So instead of sacrificing our power and sacrificing our light and sacrificing even our emotions or our thoughts or our psyche in order to be liked, we take our own path, we take a hold of our own reality, and we live in truth and our own connection to source. And then we meet people and find people that love us in that reality and that connect to us from our truth rather than the other way around. So that's the true the true way to connect with our light in this time is not to sacrifice in order to get along, but rather to be so much ourselves that those who will be attracted to that and love us for who we are will find us and see our light in the darkness and bring their own light, and together those can match. So that's really this part and where we are. But it's murky, it's hidden. There's a lot of hidden energy right now. And again, this is something I discussed in depth in the last video, because the sun was still in Libra. It was the full moon in Aries, so the sun was in Libra, and the ruler of the sun, Venus, was in Virgo. Well, the ruler of the sun is still in Virgo. It's at the very end. And so we still have that quality of hidden energy, but this time it's not just the ruler of the sun, right? It's also the ruler of the moon, which last time the ruler of the moon was in the 12th house from that as well, but that was Mars in Pisces. Now we have it the same ruler in Virgo. And the thing with the new moon is, in general, our emotional state and our psyche, our mental qualities, are less engaged in the world. That's the quality of the new moon. It's sort of anti-Libra. It's less about how engaged we can be in the external world and more about finding our meditative state internally. So more about taking the sun's power and the moon's quality of connectivity and merging them together. And that's why the moon is dark. We don't see it because they're in the same place. The sun and the moon are in the same place and becoming one. But it doesn't feel as good engaged in the world. It feels more meditative. So this period of time, there's still a lot of hidden energy. There's still a lot that is not above water, that is not above the surface, and that we can't see. And so we have to wade through that sort of murky quality to find our truth. And of course, the truth is not going to be based on specific facts or details as much as it's going to be on guiding the light, finding the light and being guided by it. Mars, which has been retrograde for a couple months now, is going direct right before this new moon. So we will have a feeling of forward motion with our actions coming really soon. It starts by halting, so you might feel things sort of got stuck for a minute, which can be even more challenging than actually the retrograde quality, where it feels like everything's going backwards and we're running over old ground. When it's stuck, it can actually feel just like it won't go any which way. It's not even going backwards, it's just not going. But as we move into the next couple of days, I'm filming this on the, I believe the 10th or the 11th. So the 10th. So the next couple of days we'll start to feel that motion of stuck and then moving forward, as the 13th is when Mars will be going forward by the end of the 13th, at least Hawaii time. I'm a little bit earlier time zone than many people who might be watching this, so it can be as far as the 14th for some of you. So this new moon also is going to have that drishti from Mars, and it will be direct by the time it happens. So Mars gives a one-way drishti, 8 houses ahead, and we're going to see that energy of maybe anger, really, because we have had so much frustration with Mars being retrograde in Pisces. It's been so challenging to get things done that you can see when the light first, or when the motion keeps moving forward, we can see that start off in a spark of fire. But it is still in Pisces, so it's still in that sort of watery emotional realm. Expect maybe some of that fire to come out in that way initially, in a more emotional way, and having more to do with how you feel than the external world when it moves back into Aries. We're going to see that the anger and stuff that's been beneath the surface is going to start to really come out, especially probably in some relations, because it is in Libra, and we do have to deal with our relational quality in Libra. So the emotions that are angry coming onto our relationships and coming out. And because there is so much hidden energy, and because so many things are kind of beneath the surface, it can be very convoluted, passive-aggressive, and not really direct. We also have Venus, like I said, the ruler of the sun and moon, in the 12th house from it, and it's debilitated in Virgo. It really has a quality of, sort of nitpicking on the details and picking out things that are annoying or that don't make everything neat, perfect, and clean, and not really stepping back and seeing the big picture. And that can be really frustrating as well. Mars is also giving its drishti to Venus, but in that case it's 2 ways. So Venus is giving it to Mars, Mars is giving it to Venus. It's back and forth because it's the 7th house, it's across the way. And they're all in very similar degrees. They're all at the end of the sign. So we're going to see it, the drishti is fairly tight, and it's something that can also bring up anger in relationship, and it can bring up sexual tension and sexual fire if you're maybe in a newer relationship. But if you're in a long-term relationship, it can create a lot of the battles that happen in relationship. Individuality versus connection. How much do we do for partnership? How much do we do for our own personal discipline? And feeling frustrated that we're not being disciplined enough and that we're not getting enough done because Mars has been retrograde and it is in Pisces. Putting that on our relationships. It's your fault because you're like this and this and this, and all these little nitpicky things that we can point out someone else isn't doing right. When really what we're doing is looking at ourselves. What we're really feeling is anger at ourselves for not being disciplined enough, for not being perfect enough, for not being pure enough, for not being healthy enough, for all the different things that we think that we're not doing. We have a tendency to first project that outwards on others. So definitely relationships are going to have a bit of a challenge here. And again, there's so much that's not above water. There's so much that we're not seeing, we're not choosing to look at, that's going to be a big factor as well. And as the moon moves into Scorpio in the first few days, we're going to see that it's going to join Ketu. It's going to join the South Node. And that is going to give a quality of detachment from our emotions. So first we go through sort of the emotional roller coaster at the beginning of Scorpio. The second nakshatra in Scorpio is Anuradha, so there's a devotional quality. It's after Radha. It's the the quality of sort of maybe surrendering a little bit of our emotional state. And then the final star is Jaista, and that's the eldest. That's when we hold our queenly state, or we hold our state of status and power, and that's where the South Node is. So when we get to that place, you can see sort of the harsh queen come out, right? The harsh eldest, because there's a detachment with Ketu. There's a part with Ketu where we're not wanting to really be involved with our emotions and feeling cut off from them and feeling sort of, what's the point of any of it? But meanwhile, really there's quite a fiery, angry energy in that. There's a disappointment, a disgruntled quality, and that's where the detachment is coming from. So again, that's going to be very rough for relationships, because we do connect in our relationships through the moon. We connect through our emotional state. And anybody who has anyone close to them with that Ketu on the moon, they know that that's it's a challenge already to connect with somebody like that, because there is so much they're not willing to look at emotionally. They're so quick to cut off from their emotions and therefore cut you off. So we'll all be feeling that. So it's going to be a tough time for us in our relationships. And again, the answer is to go inside. The answer is to find our light, to find our lantern. Diwali starts actually right before the new moon. So a lot of the holidays will start on the new moon or right after. This one starts right before. You sort of prepare, you clean your house, you bring in blessings for wealth. You want to, they'll often buy gold or silver or different household items, kitchen stuff, things like that. Bringing in the idea of abundance by cleaning the slate for it and making room for it and setting the table for it. And then the next phase, that's on the 13th lunar phase, which is right leading up to the 14th, which is generally referred to as Shivaratri. It's when we're going into the darkest state, the darkest, most meditative state of things, and that's Chaturdarshi. So that's when we're moving to dark completely, and that part we start to surrender ourselves. And then we move into Amavasya, which is the new moon, and this is the actual celebration of Diwali, where we're celebrating Lakshmi and the blessings of wealth, prosperity, generosity. Really, when I think of Lakshmi, a lot of times, especially in India, you'll see celebrations that focus on wealth and money. And of course, that's something we need in our society and in our times. But I feel the higher principles of Lakshmi often can go to the wayside, where we really want to honor generosity and graciousness and beauty and making things lovely and loving. And our highest level of wealth is our spiritual wealth. When we're really wealthy, we hold high spiritual values, because surely we've all met people before who have all the money in the world and are extremely unhappy. And we've also met people who are very poor who are very happy. So having a quality of spiritual wealth and generosity and graciousness is going to make you more happy in the end than having all the wealth and all the gold and all the silver that you can accrue. So this is what I like to focus on whenever Lakshmi is in the room. And we, might light lanterns around our house and allow that this goddess's energy can visit us. And again, light the lantern inside as well. And then there is continuing 2 more days into the first stages after the new moon as well, where we can celebrate. So there's different mythology, different stories around that. And if you're going to be taking my yoga class on Thursday, you'll be able to hear some of those myths. But ultimately, it's a celebration of light over dark. So the myths represent light fighting dark, the light fighting the demons. And of course, all of that has to do with our own relationship. Can we overcome the darkness? And one of the myths, it's the end of the Ramayana, where you see that Sita, who is an emanation of Lakshmi, is coming back after having been stolen by the evil demon Ravana. And Ram, who is the emanation of Vishnu, comes with his wife back to their town, Ayodhya, where they began their journey, and he is now the king, and she is being called into question as to whether or not she's allowed to still be the queen. She's been through this horrific experience of being kidnapped, and she's having her morality be questioned because she was with this evil demon, and doesn't that taint her and make her unable to be queen of these people? And in order to prove herself, she has to step in a sacrificial fire. And she is able to prove herself. She's able to prove herself as she is not burned in the fire. Her purity is proven, but yet there's still questions. It's like, no, that's not good enough. And she ends up sacrificing herself and not being queen, and not even being alive on earth, and having to reach with her other half, with Vishnu, at a later time. This shows where we are as a society and as people, where we have a tendency to want things to be very pure and very perfect, and to point out anything that's flawed in others as opposed to ourselves. And what Sita does is turn inward and know her own purity, know her own truth, know her own connection to Source, to God, and to her partner, to her other half, Vishnu, and to know that she is in the right? And that's enough to carry her through the fire, and it's enough to allow her to sacrifice even her existence on earth, because she knows she's living for truth. So this is like sort of the ultimate tale for these times that we're in right now, and for everything I just described in the astrology. So if you can reflect on that in yourself, and if you choose to light lanterns outside of yourself, really understanding what an internal light you have and you hold within you, and how much strength and power that can give you when you don't give it to others, when you're not selling it sort of to others. Right now also, even as this new moon is occurring, Jupiter is still at the final degrees, the 29 degrees. So we have a lot of energy that's at the end degrees of things, which is really shows a lack of full presence with that energy. But Jupiter, even with its lack of presence, is in its own sign of Sagittarius still for this new moon. But a few days after, the 19th, we're going to see that Jupiter moves into sidereal Capricorn. And here in Hawaii, it's actually it's in the evening, so it's pretty much more like the 20th for many of you. Jupiter in Capricorn is going to take an immediate feeling of tightening, an immediate feeling of contraction, that expansion, that wealth, that capacity to really reach into spiritual qualities and even practices and teachings that might differ from your own that you were raised with. Your expansion and capacity to see truth from a really from a very burning perspective, as Sagittarius is a fire sign, so you can shine the light on all these teachings and all these world things and really find the path, is going to constrict, and things are going to get darker and colder and more constrictive as Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn is in Capricorn waiting, just waiting for Jupiter to come. And Saturn's only at 2 degrees and 58 seconds of Capricorn, so we're going to see that there's a very close proximity, quick, for these two planets. And that constriction, that contraction, and that chilling of the energy of Jupiter and of our wisdom and of our capacity to reach for good teachings and good rulings and good governance even, is going to diminish. And so we take hold of this ceremony and this light right now while we have it. And I think it's very important to connect when you can. And part of what I love about astrology and understanding all these energies, specifically Vedic astrology, because it's so precise, is that you really are harnessing things when it's available and understanding when it's not, or how things might play differently at those times. For each of us, it's a different part of our chart. It's different signs. It's different houses and different areas of our life that are being ruled, and also where the planet's going. So Jupiter rules 2 different houses for each of us, and it goes to a specific place in our chart. So it's going to be very different for each of us how it plays out in our life. But collectively, we will all hold the energy of Jupiter, being our wisdom, being our higher teachings, being ourselves as teachers, being the teachers we have in our life, including our children. We'll be experiencing a Capricornian feeling and vibration around that energy. So it's really important to understand that. And Jupiter is also reflective of our capacity with wealth and generosity, some of the similar things that Lakshmi represents. And we can see that restricting as well. So we can see that financially there's going to be more restriction, both on our own personal level. We might save more, conserve more, be a little cheaper, be a little less willing to spend money on things, but also in terms of government and any kind of money and generosity that might be coming from that direction will also have a tightening effect. So that's something to be aware of as well. As we reach for blessings of wealth and abundance during this Diwali, we might also have awareness around how wealth can come from just saving money or spending less, choosing what's really important for the long-term future, and choosing what's a little bit more of a frivolous expense, and making choices more towards just what's necessary and practical. So I think that this is enough for right now. So I will sign off, but I do have a report coming out very soon of Jupiter and all 12 signs for Jupiter and Capricorn for all 12 signs. At the current moment, if you sign up for my newsletter, you will be getting Rahu and Taurus, Ketu and Scorpio for all 12 signs. So the nodal axis that we're in, and we're coming up on our first big eclipse in December. So that will be very pertinent, and that will continue to send. But the new report that I'll be adding to that is going to be Jupiter and Capricorn for all 12 signs. So if you are a member of my newsletter, you'll get that automatically. And if you sign up now, you'll get that Rahu and Taurus, Ketu and Scorpio, and you'll get the Jupiter one as soon as it comes out in the next week or so. So I wish you many blessings here, and I hope that you find that inner lantern of light for yourself and are able to celebrate this festival of lights in whatever way feels good to you. And really, I hold light for all of us. I hold that space not just for myself, but really for all of us to find our own inner path of truth and not allow it to be dictated by the external resources and the external world and the voices of so many others, but really be able to stand in that power ourselves. So best wishes to you. Happy Diwali and new moon. And I'll see you real soon. Namaste.